All right, welcome to the India Development Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar and we're talking today about exit polls which are coming in. So 5 states have gone to polls, and of this one is Uttar Pradesh, which sends the largest number of members of parliament to the Lok Sabha, which is why this bout of assembly elections has been so closely watched and closely tracked. It's typically believed that the party who manages to win Uttar Pradesh has an easier path laid out to it for the Lok Sabha elections. The next big general assembly election is, of course, in 2024. So that's the context where everyone wants to know who's winning in UP. We won't know that answer till the 10th of March, but in the interim, we always have exit polls to talk about. Now, we're taking a look at what the average of these exit polls are pointing towards, with the caveat that this is not the result. This is not a final claim of what the result is going to be like. That will be known only on the 10th of March and will be declared by the Election Commission. But this is just an indicator of what we may see. Now, having said that, and with that pinch of salt, let's give you the key highlights of what we've seen so far. So, Uttar Pradesh, the big question. Yes, BJP is coming back to power by all accounts. All of the exit polls are giving BJP a return to power with a reduced majority though. While they had 300 plus, a massive sweep in 2017, they will make it between 225 to 250 seats if you look at an average of what the polls are saying. But nevertheless, a win is a win. This will be a big win in a very tough state where it's hard to contest. So it will be a huge shot in the arm for Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath if that does happen. The big story, the big twist in the tail though, is seeming to come in from Punjab, where all polls are pretty clear that Aam Admi Party is marching to power, thundering to power in Punjab with a massive majority, leaving behind the incumbent Congress government, which was plagued by infighting, leaving behind the Akalis, which didn't seem to have a way to really come back to power, and perhaps leaving the ambitions of Captain Amrinder Singh in the dust. So the Aam Admi Party, if it does win in Punjab, will see it ruling a government in a second state in India. Let's come to Goa and Uttarakhand. No clear trend over there. Most polls have a mixed bag, and you could say it's a very closely contested fight. So we'll really have to wait and see what happens on the 10th of March. Do smaller parties play a key role as kingmaker, or really what happens next? So this is the snapshot of what the exit polls are saying. If they are true, what does that really mean for national politics? What does it mean for the pace of reform in this country? What does it mean for markets? To answer some of those questions, I'm joined now by Ajay Bagga, chairman of Elements platform. Neerja Chowdhury, political analyst, is also with us on the show. We will be joined shortly by Swaminathan Aiyar, consulting editor, ET Now. And about 9:15, we'll be speaking with Yashwant Deshmukh, founder editor of CVoter International. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for speaking with us this evening on the India Development Debate. Let me go across to Swaminathan Aiyar first. Swami sir, what is your take on all these exit poll numbers? Of course, with all of the asterisk mark that we need not believe what they're saying is true.
Well, yes, you're very wise to say that, the exit polls are off and we should wait for 3 days. But since we are discussing the topic anyway, if the BJP comes back to power with something like 225, 250 seats, it is an extremely good result. Even if they lost all the other 4, if you just win Uttar Pradesh, which is such a big and important state, with this kind of majority, it would be extremely good news for the BJP. It would mean that this
All right, I think I've lost the line there with Swaminathan Aiyar. I'm going to try and get him back on. Meanwhile, let me go across to Neerja ji. Okay, so great for the BJP if they come back. Some are pointing out that it will be with a pretty reduced number, where you had 312, 315 in 2017. Now you would be 225, 250 with the most generous of accounts and exit polls. Do you think that makes a difference?
Look, to my mind, this election was one of sentiment versus machinery. Sentiment seemed to be going for Akhilesh Yadav way. And you look at it, the Samajwadi Party last time was 47 seats. And if it comes up to 150 to 160, that's a huge whopping gain. BJP was 312. If it comes down to 220, it is a huge loss, almost 100 seats loss. And it's possible by the time we reach March 10th, the BJP may be a little further down. But that shows that the BJP machinery, the well-oiled, massive, resource-driven machinery, the largest election machinery in the world probably, has made up, by sheer dint of hard work. And somewhere down the line, their narrative also changed. Their workers, booth workers, have gone from house to house, telling people these are the schemes under which you've got so much ration, so much oil, so much a house, electricity, etc., reminding them what is called the Labharti scheme. And the Muslim Yadav has come out very boisterously and solidly, I would say even 90% in favor of Akhilesh Yadav's Gathbandhan. But it is a silent voter, which is the non-Yadavi, extremely backward castes, and the non-Jatav Dalits, who will be decisive. How much does the BJP lose of their vote? If it loses only 10 to 20%, then we will see the kind of results the exit polls are projecting. If it is more than that, then the numbers may slump. So the silent voter is going to be critical, and the silent voter has been the beneficiary of this social welfare program of the BJP. So in that sense, while polarization has been, under the surface, Hindu-Muslim, the Yogi Adityanath talked about 80 versus 20%. But this time the BJP has plugged hard the I won't say the development, but the benefits of its social welfareism. And of course, the Modi image in the last phase, the Modi popularity remains.
That narrative sort of changed. Yeah.
That's right. The narrative changed. And
sure,
in the last
if you look at the campaign trail, the pitch changed from,
So, by 80 versus 20, or saying Akhilesh Yadav's rule is like the Ghazni rule, or talking about Mathura, etc., etc., they were reminding the voter. It wasn't in the usual sense of polarizing through a riot, but they were constantly reminding the voter, we are the protectors of the Hindus. So that narrative has also been, has been the subtext. But by and large, it is, it is the Labharthis and Yogi Adityanath's record of, improving law and order, I think in the smaller towns and the bigger cities, that also has made a difference.
Yes. Let me go back to Swaminathan Aiyar, who's been reconnected, and you made an important point in your comments that if we're agreeing that the exit polls may not be correct, we're still discussing it, and let's get to the point of why we're discussing it. Why do we care from the context of a business news channel? What do we want to know? Because it will also determine to some extent how the central government rolls out either its reform plans or its welfare scheme largesse. For example, would these polls influence a decision such as how much of hike to show on petrol and diesel prices at a retail level, depending on whether they win in UP and by how much?
If they win by such a good margin in Uttar Pradesh, and taking into account the fact that Mr. Modi is more popular than the party as a whole, I would say that the party will then say, look, we are going to win the next general election comfortably. If we are going to win the next general election we can afford to take some risks. We can afford to use our political capital. We can therefore price of oil. We can avoid populism and try to invest in infrastructure to revive growth, to create jobs. So I would say that if there's a victory for BJP here, it would be positive for the because it will be of a very major nature by Mr. Modi on reforms backtracking so far. So it will give the BJP more courage. If we have those growth because they desperately need more jobs. That's the one black mark against the BJP right now. And good growth for the next 2 years, if they can focus on that, don't worry about populism, good for the economy. So I would say a strong win for the BJP in the UP election will be for the market and a positive for the BJP's prospects in the general election.
Mr. Bagga, let me, come to you with the question of are markets looking at this amount? I mean, of course, politics is something everyone is excited about. So in terms of that sense, yes, everyone is looking at what comes out of this election. But from a market point of view, which is already battered, hammered, Ukraine, Russia, FIIs exiting, all of that happening, how big a factor is this election result?
Tamanna, if it's a BJP loss, it becomes a bigger negative for the already drained out markets. And if it's a BJP win, it gives some straws for the market to clutch at. I think that's the sum and substance of it. The big points I would like to make. One, Yogi won the last election despite demonetization being pretty recent, despite GST coming in, despite the traditional Banya vote, the trader vote getting hit very badly by GST. Still he had delivered. Now this, if these polls are correct, 10th we will be in a better position, Tamanna, and especially if we get the caste-wise voting patterns by 10th night, I would really look forward to analyze that. But the big thing is, in 2009, when I was in a foreign bank, we had made a dossier for our global headquarters on what happens if Mayawati becomes the kingmaker at the national levels, what will happen. I think this time also Mayawati has played a big role. And if the Dalit votes, as the exit polls are showing, have gone to BJP in a large way, they have to thank Mayawati for this victory to some extent. That's one. Second is, if these polls are correct, that shows that there is some understanding of the voter beyond only the caste. The third big thing is it gives a boost to political capital, which was eroding very fast. What we had in 2019, I think that was getting eroded, and especially the farm laws led to a lot of erosion. It gives a fresh boost. And finally, why is UP important? It's as big as Brazil in terms of population. In GDP, it's only Kenya. If UP becomes prosperous, it changes the situation for India overall. We have a private consumption expenditure issue. We are minus 8% on that, even though GDP has reached nominally to pre-COVID levels. In a market sense, the private consumption has still not caught up with that. And that has to catch up, and there UP really contributes.
Can I just ask you, just on this point? Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt you, because you're bringing up a very important point. So I want to ask you, is that economic growth actually a factor in these elections at all? Are people voting on that? Neerja ji was talking about how the welfareism is going to be the key winning point, or perhaps for the BJP, if these polls are correct. We've seen a bad time for the economy as a whole and UP as well in terms of GDP in the last 5 years. So is that a key factor at all for elections?
Yeah, joblessness, Tamanna, is a factor for the youth. Definitely for a young country like ours, we are not creating the jobs. And that is used by all political parties to create hope in the youth. So definitely that's a factor. Welfareism has been very good. Look at what's happening in Egypt now with the Ukrainian-Russian wheat supplies not coming through. Bigger risk is with the fertilizer supplies not coming from Russia. You're going to have a very poor global harvest. And we are so lucky in India that we are surplus on food. So I think that was a big achievement of this government. The vaccination numbers and then reaching out to the constituencies to inform them on what all has been done. I think that was a lot of hard work. But the very fact what Neerja ji mentioned, that what SP is able to bounce back, that is the unemployment. That's the lack of opportunities. And we need very huge amounts of state spending to kickstart that. It will not come from the private sector. It will have to come, as you mentioned earlier, Swami also said, that infrastructure spending will have to be ratcheted up, but you have only 2 years left now. So it's going to be a government in rush. I'm expecting a lot of big bang things to happen. Private consumption has to be brought back. If you ask me one mantra for this government, bring back private consumption by putting more money in people's pockets. Second, control inflation. Leave aside fiscal deficit issues for 2 years. You have to get re-elected. Stop that inflation tiger. Yes, Tamanna.
That I think is going to be perhaps the toughest call considering the situation we're currently in. I want to welcome Yashwant Deshmukh onto the show. Yashwant, thank you for coming and joining us on a day when I'm sure you are in great demand. It's exit poll day, and I've taken a look at your numbers. They are telling pretty much the same story. BJP comes back in UP, but with a reduced majority. Aam Admi Party strides into Punjab, close contest in Goa and Uttarakhand. Is that the correct way of putting it?
Absolutely, and BJP is comfortable with the alliance and EDA partners in Manipur. So all in all, this looks like a comfortable situation. And Tamanna, this is not very different actually from our tracker, which we know. I mean, one big difference between what we do is that it's not a one-off activity for us. We are polling 365 days a year. And Neerja and I have been participating in those tracker analysis so many times in the last 6 months. I guess that it is just the culmination or continuation of the same trend everywhere. BJP is, of course, getting almost like 6%, 7% lead in Uttar Pradesh in terms of vote share. And that is precisely what I have been telling you. You know, in our tracker, we had marked that the growth of Samajwadi Party from 22% right up to 35%. And that is where we said that, you know, they have hit a kind of a glass ceiling. And it's not going up beyond that. And BJP is not coming below 40% for sure. And if that is the case, then 5-6% gap is good enough gap to ensure a very decent majority mark for the BJP. Now with 7% gap, it is certainly way above 225 for figure. I cannot say how much way above because, you know, I am a conservative pollster as far as projection of seat is concerned, because I genuinely believe that polling stops at the estimation of the vote share calculation. The conversion of vote to seat is just a mathematical extrapolation, and 10 different people have different kind of formulas. So within the same vote share, somebody might say BJP can get 225, another one can say 250, another one can say even 300. So I'm not going into that direction, but the broad direction is clear. BJP is going to be repeated in Uttar Pradesh, and that's historic because for the last almost 35 years, we haven't seen Uttar Pradesh voting back the same party again in power.
That is going to be historic. Aam Admi Party in Punjab is going to be historic. Neerja ji, we have talked about who will come out as winners. Let's talk about what this means for the picture for national politics and for opposition parties going into 2024. Does this leave the Congress sliding even further down that list of political parties? Even if we assume that they make it in Goa and Uttarakhand, the loss of Punjab will hurt.
Yeah, I think that you see if the Aam Admi Party, as is likely, and people are saying this all over Punjab, if they win a clear majority, And that means their messaging has gone home. Give us one chance to deliver. And people are saying, let's try them out also. Now, if that happens in Punjab, then overnight, Arvind Kejriwal will be seen in a very different light all over the country. Winning a mid-sized state, so not just Little Delhi, and coming on the plank of delivery, Bijli, Pani, government schools, hospitals, clinics, and we will deliver as we've done in Delhi. Now that has an appeal for the general public, but a very great appeal for the young people. So I think, that it could well be the 2015 moment for Aam Admi Party. Remember Delhi when they got 67 out of 70 seats, and suddenly after that there was an ugly split. And the onrush to join the Aam Admi Party at that time but just came to a halt. Now I think that may restart, though Aam Admi Party is no longer viewed in the idealistic terms that it was in those early days. But so I think, and the Aam Admi Party will increasingly take the Congress space. Now coming to Congress, I think if the Goa and Uttarakhand turn out to be hung assemblies, then the well-endowed, better endowed party is more likely to form that government. We know that from experience. We, of course, know Mr. Chidambaram has been campaigning this time in Goa, and Congress will try hard for that not to repeat. But the Congress was well placed at one stage to win 4 out of these 5 states. Uttarakhand, where there were 3 changes of chief ministers. Goa, it seemed to be going its way. Punjab, it would have said, had this change not taken place, everybody 6 months ago, 7 months ago used to say Congress is coming back to power. And Congress has placed its cards so poorly that if the BJP wins 4 out of these 5 states, then BJP is very well placed for 2024, particularly if the Congress is down. Regional parties' revival in states is not an alternative without the Congress also, becoming an alternative, reviving for 2024. So this is good news for the BJP.
One
in 2
would
ways.
argue it actually benefits. Sure. Let me go to Yashwant on this. One would argue that this is better news for the BJP, the Aam Admi Party coming into Punjab rather than the Congress. The growth of regional parties to occupy the opposition space is great news for the BJP on a national level, isn't it?
Well, yes and no, Tamanna, because in the short term, it is going to be great news for the BJP if you are looking around only for 2024. Obviously, Aam Admi Party and Arvind Kejriwal will project themselves. If they win Punjab, they will project themselves as a national alternative. They will start eating up the Congress votes more, and that will eventually help in 2024 the BJP to start with. But in the long term, can BJP be very happy about it? I mean, if I was the BJP guy, I would see a clear and present danger of a party and a leader which is coming up, who is wearing his those nationalistic policies and ideas on the sleeve, and who is pretty much delivering the social welfare schemes to the people. So there is a big differentiator as far as Aam Admi Party and Congress is concerned. So Aam Admi Party doesn't carry the kind of allergy of majority Hindu voters that it might be right now having, or pro-BJP voters which might be having for the Congress or the other opposition party. So in a long term, if I was BJP, I would be very much alarmed at the rise of Aam Admi Party and Arvind Kejriwal phenomena. However, I agree with Neerja ji that in a short term, this is could be very beneficial. And one more thing, Tamanna, I had said this earlier on your program as well, and me and Neerja ji have discussed it very often. The overtly pitching of Mamata Banerjee as the national alternative, I have always said that is not going to click, because Arvind Kejriwal has a much better appeal at the pan-India level. In our trackers all along, in so many years, we have figured out Arvind Kejriwal was always about 7-8% at the national level, because he is coming from as a chief minister of NCR, Delhi, having a more acceptability. While the 6% odd rating of Mamata Banerjee at the national level was heavily skewed from the virtue of being chief minister of West Bengal, and West Bengal being a very popular state. So her big number of ratings were coming from her home state, which was not the case of Arvind Kejriwal. This is why I totally agree with Neerja on this, that if Aam Admi Party wins Punjab, this is going to change the way people of India look at Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Admi Party, and they could very well try to be a national alternative. Yep. In the short term, it will be difficult for the
Yashwant,
Congress.
just one more question, Yashwant. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. One more question, Yashwant. Does it also change, or I would say enhance, the perception of Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath? There is already talk and a lot of buzz of him being a future prime ministerial candidate at some point. Does the path to that now get burnished with the kind of win that is predicted in Uttar Pradesh if he does create history and returns to power?
I don't think so, honestly, for a simple reason that we all know for sure that BJP was in a really, I won't say pathetic and bad shape, but concerned state about 3 months back from now. And it took all the might of the central BJP and Prime Minister Modi to put everything into the campaign, and take the things into his own hand and try to turn it around for the BJP. Yes, Mr. Yogi is an asset to some extent for the BJP, but I think for him to become the national alternative in place of Narendra Modi at some point of time, that is still a very long task. I'm not saying nothing is impossible in politics, Tamanna, but the fact that the exit polls are showing BJP in comfortable lead today at this point of time has a lot to do, and the credit has to go big time to Narendra Modi rather than the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh.
Okay, that's a very key point over there, Ajay Bagga. As we wrap up this discussion, the big picture really for those who watch national politics very closely and look at what the impact of these results will be on reform. You talked about taming the tiger of inflation. You talked about increasing consumption. Well, the fact is these might be the two toughest things for any government to do right now, with crude at 120 per barrel, with inflation definitely going to inch up, all commodity prices shooting up. We're already seeing the price increase being passed on. We don't know what's going to happen with petrol and diesel retail prices. Do you think that that's where the focus will have to be now over the next 2 years when we look at the run-up to the national elections or the next general elections, where joblessness and inflation and concerns like that cannot be once again pushed to the side because of the persona of a very popular prime minister? That's just not going to be enough beyond a point.
Yeah, Tamanna, I think 2024 is in the bag if these exit polls are there. So there will be that amount of thinking. But I sincerely think that a lot needs to be done for very traditional constituencies who have really lost out based on demonetization, GST, the COVID wave. A lot needs to be done there. Second, passing on the entire oil price. If you look at today's state governments and central governments, even at $90, were earning about 5 lakh crores a year, which is going out of the consumer's pocket in terms of oil taxes. So it's not that there is not a buffer. Yes, your fiscal deficit comes under pressure. LIC IPO doesn't look like happening in March. It goes to the next fiscal. A lot will depend on how the markets are able to absorb it. So there is a fiscal issue. But right now, the bigger issue is inflation. And you can't pass on $120 and keep on pocketing, because the states are in VAT and the center is at a fixed cost. So you have to cut excise duty, as happened on 4th November when the last oil prices moved. if you tomorrow move the oil price up by 12 rupees, 14 rupees, there's going to be a huge disappointment. So I think sooner or later, this has to be addressed because it gives a cost push to the entire economy. Second is starting a rupee trade. Russia has got 5 million barrels a day of export surplus sitting there. Shell is buying that at deep discount and selling in the markets. We should have a canalizing agency. $400 million of Indian exporters are stuck in Russia, which they're not getting payments. So some strategic moves like the Chinese has to be done to safeguard our energy security and ensuring that we don't pass on this inflation. The job creation will not happen in the next 2 years. It's very difficult to do, but at least fill up the government jobs which are going a begging around the country. I think some move has to be done. Third is welfare measures, Tamanna. Every time there is a quantum leap in expectation. So now you have given houses to people, you've given 12 crore cylinders. So that has now been accepted. People are accepting something new. You've given toilets, you're bringing, this year we'll bring water to most households across the country. Electrification is done. So what do you do next in terms of welfareism is going to be a big question. I think those 3 questions have to be answered. How do you get consumption up back, which means putting more money into people's pockets? Manrega will not be able to deliver. You're doing 50 days as against 100 days on a double budget. So that's going to be difficult to deliver. It's not an easy thing. Inflation absorbed most of these prices. It's not a demand-supply gap, Tamanna. It's a geopolitical premium that you are paying at $120, $130. Demand-supply is still at 85, 90. And the Russian oil is there for the taking. Take that oil. And third, I would say you will not be able to create jobs. So think of some more welfare measures to see you through 2024.
Well, the central government anyway has their task cut out for them, election or no election. But yes, this will be a very, very significant one and will impact the next several decades of Indian politics if both these factors do come true, as the polls are predicting that the BJP returns in UP and the Aam Admi Party wins in Punjab. We'll have to wait and see on the 10th of March if this all bears out. Meanwhile, I want to thank all of you for joining us on the show this evening.